Live from the Pitch Pad in New York City. Get ready to unleash your inner entrepreneur with Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the Shark Tank, this is the place to be to discover how to turn your pitch into reality. Fasten your seatbelts, pitch stars, because the spotlight is on you and we are about to make success happen. Get ready for Pitch Live in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Pitch Live. I'm your host, Amy Summers, founder and president of Pitch Publicity and Vox. I am also a hardworking entrepreneur who is passionate about helping you reach success in any area of your life. And I know that is possible after decades of experience in perfecting the pitch and enhancing communication skills, which is why I'm here today and joined by Taylor Hadden, who is a former and forever pitch star, having completed our internship mentorship program at Pitch Publicity at the end of 2020. Taylor started her internship with us in the spring of 2019. And during her time with us, literally, she has worked on every aspect of our business, from pitching media, client reporting, media events, all the background database stuff that you have to do to cultivate targeted media lists. Welcome, Taylor.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me on. I know you were talking a lot of game about the podcast, but I've obviously listened to it myself. So to be here today is really something else. So thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And, after Taylor graduated from the University of Florida in 2020, she stayed on with us through the end of that year because she was really focused on landing an A-list job in the field of public relations. And, 2020 just wasn't a good year. It was a tough year. It was pandemic year. And I was really proud for her that she landed a spot with Golan, a huge PR agency in Chicago, and worked her way up there to an associate position while working remotely. And she worked on some pretty big brands like Walmart, and she's just always shooting for the stars. So I guess I can say I was not surprised that she moved on and is now working at Waxman. It's a public relations firm that got its start in Bitcoin. So talk about being fearless, tackling something that a lot of us didn't know that much about. And they're focused on technology and financial services. And Taylor is one of the hardest working individuals I know. And her focus and drive for success is simply unmatched. And I am so glad that you're here because I want to dive right into it and just dissect how you make success happen. We always say MSH here at Pitch Publicity, just got to make it happen. And you're one of those people that definitely do that. So I remember, actually, I was a little hesitant to hire you. I don't know if I ever discussed this with you.
I believe you mentioned it before a bit offhand. Yes.
But, in all the years of having this internship mentorship program, I've been trying to figure out what is, the formula for the right student that's going to really excel. And, not everybody that comes through makes it. So, if you're on this podcast, anyone on this podcast, they've made it, they're superstars. But that's not to say I haven't had my fair share of students that come through that just, it wasn't their cup of tea or they just couldn't stick with it. But Taylor, when she came to me, she had some red flags that I thought were red flags. And I thought, I don't know if this is going to work. So one of my red flags has over the years been if a student was too involved in school, which you would think actually that is a positive on a resume, that they may not be so committed to the internship. So Taylor was, she was running this student public relations firm at the University of Florida called Alpha Productions. And she was managing director and in charge of all these other students. And, and she's in the she's in the interview with me, saying all this is great and it should be great. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, here we go. I don't know. She's going to really have time for me. But I gave her a shot, and she really was wanting. I remember you told me you really want to get some outside experience from school, and I think that that's so important. And so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I have had students come through thinking that they really didn't need an internship outside of school because a lot of these universities now have a lot of programs within the university that you almost don't even have to go get a job with anybody. You can kind of just get some kind of experience at school. And I've had some students graduate and then come back and like beg me for an internship because they're like, okay, I'm out in the real world and it's not
Yep.
like that. So can you, since you did both, can you kind of
Yeah.
tell us like what was the difference in the experience you gained within the confines of that college
Mhm.
bubble versus working with me, for example, like working with other
Yeah.
people?
I mean, I would say, like, in the grander scheme of it all, I think when you were at school, obviously you're in the field of academia, you're being handheld, you have a bunch of professors and advisors and people walking with you every step of the way. And not to say that that wasn't the case at Pitch, you definitely coached us and mentored us and gave us all of the heads up possible before going into those first set of pitches and calls and cold conversations with reporters that we never met before. But I do think that there is like that safety net that you feel at school, and the feeling that you can mess up. And if you mess up, then take that as a learning and like have a little smack on the wrist and move forward. But obviously, when you're working an internship in a real world situation with real reporters, real clients, real people paying you money, like the stakes are much higher. So I will say, like, that pressure was totally on, and it kind of like fossiled you as like a gem. You know how they say if you're under pressure, like you can turn into a diamond. In school, you got that to some sort of extent, but working with pitch, like it really was pressure on. And what kind of wins can you score? How can you twist this pitch in a way to really cater to that one reporter so they include them as like a feature in a article regarding that topic, maybe even like a spotlight or a feature on that announcement. So I would say those were like the main big differences. Also, just kind of being in school, I would say you have, again, just people, again, being more free to make you have like, you can make a mess. And I feel like, again, at a real job, you can make a mess to a certain extent, especially if you're at the junior level. But again, stakes are higher. You need to perform and you need to make your little quotas and make the client happy ultimately at the end of the day.
How did your internship when you were at Pitch Felicity with me, how did that benefit what you were doing with the student agency? Were you able to take
Yes.
these skills over there and transfer and teach those students?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even when I first started with you, Amy, I didn't really have a lot of pitching experience, right? Like everything was very theoretical. It was like what you read in the textbook and you knew it was a part of like your standard practice of a practitioner in PR, but like you didn't really get to put it into practice. And so I got to do that with you at Pitch, and that was wildly helpful. Like what it meant to create like a really customized list, what it meant to really target a reporter and do your research and stalk them to hell and figure out how you could fit their niche. And then calling on the phone, like something that I never really imagined or was like a little afraid of actually at first. And then slowly got more and more comfortable with it. So I know there were several clients that we had where obviously pitching was like a part of our scope. And a lot of students were in that similar situation where they had never pitched before and they were wildly scared to do it. And it was their first experience. And so a lot of what I was learning with you, like through my job, I was kind of mentoring and then teaching and siloing that information to them. And granted, it's so funny to look back on it now because I was truly such a novice. And I think in a lot of ways, I feel like a novice as well. But it was really cool to like take what I was freshly learning and like take the teachings you were teaching me and just kind of like wide cast that across a bunch of other students. So the wealth of knowledge was shared for sure.
So definitely worth exploring going outside of the college. Would you say that now? Is it if you were kind of giving some mentorship advice to somebody that maybe still be in school, is it worth going to work for crazy entrepreneur?
Absolutely. And like on the mentorship note too, I feel like mentorship is a skill all on of itself. And especially when I was in that role of managing director, like as much as I was learning every day, and it was my first introduction to like being a manager and being a director and building the relationships with the clients and being able to dole out work to a whole team. Like I also was, having to teach these students a lot of the times too. And it was a lot of the times my first or second rodeo, an introduction to these concepts. So I feel like being in pitch and doing a lot of the extracurriculars where I was in a position of leadership, I really learned what it was like to lead and mentor, since that's like a whole other muscle on its own.
That's great.
Mhm.
Now, you mentioned pitching on the phone, which terrifies a lot of people, but I believe
Yeah.
I had you pitching on the phone on your very first day.
Yes.
What was that experience like for you? Was it intimidating or did it feel empowering?
Yeah, I think if I'm to be completely candid with you, Amy, like it scared the hell out of me. Obviously, like I don't have a fear of the phone, but I think what mostly got me a little bit shell shocked was that, not only was like pitching on the phone and pitching still a fairly new thing to me, but it's also within this niche of like nutraceuticals and health and like these supplements and these spokespeople with these extravagant backgrounds and like then having to speak the language of these like reporters and hosts who are used to getting these pitches who know that world, and I have to be the authority, like telling them what's up and why they should have that person on the show or have them included in an article. So I think that's what kind of scared me at first. But in that moment, I also just kind of embraced it. And I was taking this internship, obviously, to be uncomfortable because through those uncomfortable moments, you really grow. And so I was like, okay, like, yeah, this kind of sucks. Yeah, this is a little bit scary. Yeah, I don't know what kind of personality I'm going to meet on the other side of the phone, but like I know the more and more that I do it, the easier it'll get. So it was like a lot of those growing pains. And before you know it, too, like, especially as I got more and more along in the internship and you threw more campaigns and different types of spokespeople at me, it just like, it became like second nature. And if anything, I kind of enjoyed it. I was like, oh, I get to talk to like, my bestie over at this publication. And it was again much more approachable and empowering. But yeah, it started a little bit scary, but I think as most things, it can be a bit frightening to begin, but then once you like excel it and get like your relationships in, it's a place of empowerment for sure.
Yeah, and it sounds like it really grew on you eventually. Like
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and you enjoyed it. And, I think that you bring up a really good point, and thanks for being so transparent about how it felt. Because one of the things I notice more recently is that sometimes I have students come in and they'll try it out like day one, and then day two, they're like, okay, this is not for me. Or they'll just decide, like on day
Yep.
two, they'll actually say, pitching is not for me. And I'm just, of course, I let them walk out the door, they'll never
Yeah.
walk back in the door with me, but unfortunately, but that bothers me a little bit for them because it's not that like pitching media on the phone is the only aspect of pitching you're ever going to do. I mean, there's pitching that we do in so many aspects of our work, whether we're in PR or sales or technology
Exactly.
or finance or anything. You have to learn how to persuade somebody, present your ideas, even advocating for yourself to get a job or to get a promotion. I mean, all of these are pitching skills. And I think I told you that in the beginning, like, if you never do this PR profession, you're definitely going to learn these skills.
Oh
So,
yeah.
just
Life
as
is
an
a biggie.
encouragement, yeah, Taylor, like it took some time. It took some time for it to kind of grow on you. How much time would you, if you could remember,
Yeah.
were you actually feeling like, okay, I've got the hang of this, and maybe I still don't love it, but I don't hate it, and I can do it.
I think like probably at that 2, 3 month mark, I was like, okay, like this isn't nearly as frightening as it was. And I feel comfortable. And like you said, sometimes I was like, like I don't want to do it. Like I'd rather just send this person like a really customized email. But again, like it wasn't that like fearful thing. It was more so like, ah, I guess I'll get on the phone. I guess I'll convince this person. I guess we'll catch up. So yeah, and I think like a lot of skills too, like usually it's like that first 60 days where it can be really hard, really challenging, really like frightful, but eventually like the more that you expose yourself to it and flex that muscle, like it becomes second nature. So yeah, like it wasn't immediate for sure, but after a few months, I was like getting to the swing of things for sure.
Do you remember what your proudest pitching moment was, either at pitch or even more recently?
Yeah, no, I think honestly, like how I concluded things at pitch was probably like more of like the hallmark moment for me. I know we were working on the Identifying the Elephant in the Room seminar series, and I know there was like a lot of amazing things that we could talk about that specific series for a number of reasons. But as far as pitching is concerned, I remember we were able to get a feature, I believe, in the Washington Post, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yes.
Forgot about
And
that. That was awesome.
I know. And I remember we were like, thinking pie in the sky, like, let's just pitch and see what happens. And so I think we were wanting it, but we weren't like holding ourselves too tight to it because it was such a big goal. But I remember we caught her attention and it was like a very long game too. Like I know we were having
You
to be.
caught her attention.
Oh
You
yeah.
caught her attention.
Yeah.
Taylor
And
did this.
oh, And I kind of kept a tight line with her, obviously, like not bombarding her and making her feel uncomfortable and making her second guess even wanting to cover the story, but a tight enough line where like, hey, like let us know how we can help as she was trying to coordinate things with the editor and get things approved. But yeah, I think that was like my proudest moment because not only was it the Washington Post, but it was also about the seminar series, which is something that I know we all really cared about.
All right, so let's walk through that a little bit. And I just want to give context in case someone is not sure about what we're talking about, this elephant in the room series. So with my educational platform, the virtual mentorship platform in EasyVox, we launched in EasyVox in 2020 while Taylor was interning with us. We launched it that year. And the very first virtual seminar series we did was on identifying the elephant in the room, and it was looking at racism from a communications perspective. And we had multiple panels. We had brought in students from the University of Florida and Howard University and all their alumni as well to have these roundtable discussions about how to address racism in the workplace in certain industries, like
Mhm.
advertising, PR, journalism. We were specifically looking in those industries, and then also within those industries, politics, sports, entertainment, fashion,
Mhm.
etc. And I had given Taylor the assignment of, hey, we should get some publicity on what we're doing over here at Anisi Vox. So can you just walk us through how the Washington Post thing came about? Um, and then you glossed over it really quickly, but I want you to
Yeah.
explain how, knowing in your mind that, okay, this is a big publication and I got this reporter interested now. How did you pace it so that you didn't, drive her nuts because we wanted the placement, but you were massaging the relationship as we went along. So first tell us, how did you get it? Or how did you get her attention? And then how did you massage it?
Yeah, I remember, gosh, if I'm able to remember everything correctly, I know we were aiming for like a lot of reporters who were specifically working on like either like stories with diverse interests. They were maybe focused on like academia, since there was that academia angle that I
Education. I
know
think
we
she was
were.
an education reporter. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe she was too. And I remember that's how we found her. And then that's like the angle in which we approached customizing her pitch, since that was her beat. And I believe she covered like a number of different like special interest stories around like diversity and education in the school system. And so we again crafted that pitch, made it really specific to her and her needs, since like why would she want to get something that is like completely outgander? So and then I believe she wrote back saying that she was interested, but she needed to check on a few things with her editor. And so at that point, we had to pace it out in a way where, like I said, we were keeping the tight line and we were holding her accountable for an answer. But it wasn't like every day we're like, hey, did you get an answer yet? Hey, did your editor say anything? Are we in? Are we not? So I couldn't tell you the exact like days necessarily that we waited in between, but I would say like maybe every like 3 to 4 days we would follow up with her. Obviously, like if she had explicitly said like, "Hey, like give me a week or two," we gave her that week or two. But yeah, I think just massaging that relationship and letting her know that we were here and we were more of like a tool and we were a helper in the situation of
A
getting her the
resource
information she
center.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're a resource. And obviously we want to connect her with everyone, get her the quotes, get her the information that she needs to write her story. And we're not just here like hounding her, trying to get free press for the cool thing that we're doing
Yeah,
right now.
and I think it's you're hitting on something that's very important because I remember us being very strategic on this. You know, Taylor had gotten this really important lead. We both knew it was an important lead. We didn't
Yep.
want to lose it. So we also kind of worked together on it, just on the strategy side of it. Of course, Taylor was the main point of contact with this reporter. But what she did that was very wise was that she kept coming back to me and saying, Amy, what do you think we should do now? What should we do now? Because it is kind of like a chess game. And I would say this is what Taylor kind of did intuitively, would be very good advice to anyone. A lot of people don't want to go to their boss or manager because they think that if they ask for help or input, that makes them look like they don't know what they're doing. But I will tell you from sitting in the boss chair, it's actually brilliant to do that because
Mhm.
if you strategize, especially with a big opportunity like this, whether it's media or a client that you're trying to get on board or whatever, if you
Yep.
do strategize with your boss or manager, at the end of the day, you're not, it's a fail safe because whatever they tell you to do was also their idea. So it's not like you're out there solo making all these decisions and you can always lose it and sometimes you lose it and it's nobody's fault really, but
Mhm.
if you keep working with, your boss or manager or client
Mhm.
or whoever it is that thinks that this is so important about strategy, then at the end of the day, you did it as a team and it doesn't come off as, okay, this one person like lost this opportunity.
Mhm. No, I mean, I still even do that to this day with a number of opportunities because, like, again, working remotely, working tricky, developing these relationships with people over email, like, it gets a little spicy and you don't really know what's going on their side of the field. Like, I know within like my specific industry, like myself, like a lot of people have like had turnover, have went over to different publications. Some publications like have like completely folded entirely and been bought out by others. So like you never know really what's going on the inside. So all you can do is like develop that tight line and be really human in your approach to them as well. Like don't just like treat it as a salesy pitch or like a sales call. Like I think if you keep the humanity aspect in there and come from a place of care and be timely, be strategic, let your team know what's going on, ask for their advice, then you'll be able to create that relationship and then hopefully get that story to run
Yeah, I
and
mean, you don't want to be the annoying two-year-old that's like, "Can I
oh
go outside? Can I go outside? Can I go outside?"
yeah.
It's kinda like, "Can I get the job? Can I get the job? Or can I get the placement?" It's like, they
Mhm.
don't nobody wants to hear that, but I remember us, if someone's wondering, like, specifically how we followed up, I remember us, one thing was you kinda brought it up quickly, but I'll go back to that,
Yeah, of
is
course.
asking when we can follow up. We use that all the time at pitch, just ask
Mhm.
them, when would be a good time for me to follow up? And even a better question is, don't even ask an open-ended question. I always like to ask,
Mhm.
should I follow up with you on Friday or Tuesday? And
Mhm.
like when you give somebody a choice, they got to pick one. I mean, it's more human nature to pick one. And if they really don't want to pick one of those, and they're going to tell you when to do it, then they
Yes.
might say, I won't be till next month." So that's one way, and then I think the other way that we did it was, we were always scouring for another excuse to come back into her, world. Like, so if something new happened in the series, right?
Yep. Hey,
Or
look what we're doing. Look at this new episode. Feel free to, scour it, use it for quotes, use it for more information, like sourcing for your story. Yeah, just finding those like timely moments to like kindly nudge and keep her like top of mind for her as she is like again whether it be talking to her editor, whether it be drafting the story, even if she was between a few stories and figuring out which one she wanted to go with, like being that like friendly little nudge and being that handy helper for them as opposed to like the annoying bug in their ear is really what makes the difference and again could lead to the win at the end of the day.
and a lot of people may not realize this, that you brought it up. I mean, she told you that she had to pitch this to her
Yeah.
boss. So like a lot of times when you're pitching someone, I mean, that they're not necessarily the final decision maker, but
No.
you have to
Yep.
equip them with enough of a persuasive pitch that they got to then go into the next meeting and pitch. And this happens to me even when I'm trying to get clients sometimes. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
talking to the marketing director and you think that that's a high enough title that they have the authority to sign off your contract. But in some companies it is, and some companies
Yeah.
it is not. And so they'll say, I got to go talk to my boss. And this boss is like this mysterious person that you'll never meet.
Yep.
And so when you're following up, like in that situation, like in a sales,
Mhm.
like trying to get clients, which I know Taylor's going to be interested in because she's got the entrepreneur bug. So I know one day she'll have her own firm. But when you're doing that, you really have to, when I follow up, I'll follow up and say, hey, how's it going? We recently did this for a client. I thought these clips might help you if you want to share
Yes.
this with your boss. Like you're always equipping them to like walk back
Mhm.
in that pitch meeting, with a good pitch. So
Absolutely. No, it's so funny. It's like the series of a pitch. Like you kind of originate it, you craft the ideas, you again, resource and get all of the materials together for them. But ultimately, in a lot of cases, like your pitch ends up going to another person who is then going to have to pitch that to another person for a ring of approval. So yeah, giving them a good foundation, like you just need to give them a good foundation, something to work with.
Um, when we talk about a lot about mentorship on this show, and you brought it up, so I want to kind of hit on that a little bit. Um, we talk about the benefits of mentorship and finding mentorship, but I know, and we don't have to name names, but I know sometimes we run into people that don't really want to help you out. And I know that you have run into those people before.
Okay.
So I'd really like to talk about this aspect of it. When you run into professionals or people that you admire that kind of just shut you down or hold you back from success, how do you navigate around that and not get discouraged and not think
Yeah.
that, hey, everyone is out to get you and that there's not a mentor for you? Because I know you've had both. You've had me. Of course, I've not roadblocked you. I know you've had others that have kind of roadblocked you, right?
100%. I think this is like a multi like faceted sort of conversation to attack it at. I think oftentimes, especially if you have a manager or like a mentor that you work with closely at your job and you feel like you're not getting the attention you need and the advocacy you need, I like to think that most of the times it's nothing personal because I know, especially in like the buzz of a hustle bustle agency, like a lot of those people who are at the senior level are already stacked so high with so many responsibilities and they aren't given enough time to properly mentor and advocate for their junior level folks. So I like to think about that. Another thing I think that I did in the past that I have changed since when entering these sorts of situations was that I would just take it and try to take the good out of it. I would try to take the critique or the criticism or the thing that I could improve upon and like let go of any of the more emotionally weighted, like personal attacky sort of statements. But that can only do you good for so long. And unfortunately, I think like the proxy of being at being in a junior level, starting somewhere new, is that you don't feel like you have the opportunity to speak up, like you don't have a position to speak up because again, you are the newbie and you just got to work hard and like keep quiet. But the reality is like the more that I have like moved up in little increments and now I'm here at Waxman, if I feel like I'm being roadblocked or that there is like a weird rift between me and a manager, or even somebody that I work with, somebody that I manage, I just throw 30 on their calendar and start off with some like fun, like conversation, something to kind of put everyone's tensions at ease, and then kind of go right to the issue in a really candid way and say, hey, like I've just noticed X, Y, and Z, or maybe you worded something to me in a way, this is how it made me feel. Do you want to talk about it? And then leave the mic to them, open the floor for them. And usually, if you attack it from that very human level, you'll often get a pretty good result. You'll be able to work hand in hand with them to not only maybe even get the apology that you deserve sometimes, but the like step by step plan of like how we're going to make things better moving forward. And so, again, I think especially working in a remote setting, I think you forget that the faces that you're looking at on the screen are people and the little headshots that you see like pop up in your DMs like are actual people. Like you just think of them as like maybe little avatars, and having that reminder of like, hey, I'm a person too. And let's figure this out. Like I want to be your ally in this situation. I want to make work easier. I want to make the client happy. Oftentimes like not only solves the initial issue, but then repairs that relationship. So that's what I would best recommend. It took me a while to get there, but if anyone can do that earlier in their career, I definitely encourage them to do it.
I love that you're doing that now. That takes a lot of it takes a lot of bravery to do that.
Oh, it does for sure. And I think I look back on myself and I have to give myself grace because I'm like, yeah, like I was young, but I think even now, like if I were to ever be managing somebody and not giving them what they needed, or I delivered feedback and it was maybe a little bit harshly worded, like I'd want them to come to me and communicate how they were feeling and maybe how we can better communicate down the line. So I like to give those people who maybe manage me a little bit of grace too. And again, communication is key. We're in communication. So I say, like, just talk it out.
Can you can you just quickly give me an
Yeah.
example without naming names where that helped you recently and how did can you
Yeah.
just walk us through like what were the words that you said that kind of turned that relationship around?
So recently there was like some miscommunication on one of my accounts, and um mostly it was because like one of the more director level people who were overseeing the account really weren't in the day to day. They weren't there seeing like everyone's efforts collectively, what people were taking ownership of. And the one AD that was mostly on the account day to day was manning a lot. And I think with people like being out on PTO and people getting hand raises and the, I'll just take care of it sort of responses, I think there was just like a lot of swirl and a lot of confusion. And so the one director got on and like gave a really harsh conversation and was like, y'all need to step it up. And I was like, well, I have stepped up. I have offered my hand. I have done X, Y, and Z things. I client service back and forth with like our main client lead all the time. And so I didn't feel good knowing that this person had this like certain colorized perspective of me. And even if it was like a matter of just clearing the air, like I also, if he felt like I wasn't doing enough, I wanted to give him the opportunity to tell me. And so we popped like 30 minutes on each other's calendar and, started with the light conversation, talked about the situation at hand, told him exactly what I did, and then offered even like a few questions of like, hey, I've never worked with a certain AD before. Like, what would you best recommend I do to make sure that he feels supported? And again, approached it from a solutions oriented space as opposed to like, I'm feeling attacked and you attacked me. And again, whether that's right or wrong or here or there, like that's a separate conversation. But I think if you go into those uncomfortable situations, like with the mindset of already trying to figure out why we had the problem and let's figure out the solve to the problem, then you can make that uncomfortable conversation that much more comfortable.
I like that problem solver instead of it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
I don't want to be blamed, because that's usually our initial reaction to things,
Of
of
course.
course.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going in with like what could I have done differently? And sometimes I think, it's a funny thing, but just in the reverse, being the boss, when I've had those conversations with other people I work with, I realize, okay, wait, my expectation is just, way out of whack here. Like I
Yeah.
had no idea that it took like this long to edit something or,
Mhm.
and so I think that as a boss or a manager, you forget that too when you're not in the trenches every single day, like doing all that specific grunt work that sometimes you're having other
Mhm.
people do. And they just need to be reminded of exactly how long it takes.
Yes.
And then it's just you have to check yourself a little bit and go, okay, I need to allow more time for my team to do this.
Mhm. Absolutely. And again too, I think it just like reminds everyone it feels a little bit more level set because I think too, if you don't address it, and again, whether it's from maybe the more like higher management side or the more junior level side, like the tensions grow and it ultimately just creates for a pretty toxic work environment. And then nobody really wants to come to the table. No one feels safe to ask questions. No one feels good enough to be like, hey, like I got a response from so and so reporter for this. Like you feel the need, like I needed to protect the work that I'm doing and I'll just handle it. And however it folds, it folds. So I think if you can nip it in the bud as soon as possible and again come from that solutions oriented kind of mindset, then it will just be a breath of fresh air and just add so much more relief and lighthearted energy to the account because there's already enough stress we get from the clients. We don't need to be like putting it on each other.
Well, Taylor, I have to say this about you. You've always been a breath of fresh air to me. Ever since the moment I worked with you, I mean, and I can be a pretty intense person, as you know. And what I always remember about you is that you kept a calm demeanor. Now, maybe I was stressing you out like crazy inside, but you have always kept a calm demeanor. And I think that's a very great quality that you possess.
Thank you.
I have a hard time with that under pressure. I think under pressure, you are a diamond. You
Thank
really
you.
are. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking about some of these harder to talk about subjects. And I love that we got into the pitching conversation into all
Mhm.
the real detail of it because I think that's a hard thing for people to understand how to learn. It's something that sometimes you just have to learn on your own. But in this show, I like to kind of talk it out and give people some ideas.
Mhm.
So
Nice little roadmap.
thank you so much for coming on and being with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much, Amy. This was wonderful. I feel like you and I just had like a own like fent conversation, but hey, if other people can learn from it, like I want them to.
Yes. And I'm so inspired by what you're doing in your career journey. And I'm so excited to watch you as you continue to rise and go to the next stage. And I hope that everybody watching, that you have been inspired by Taylor today too. And be sure to follow her. She's at Taylor Hadden on LinkedIn and also Instagram. She's at Tay Hayden 98. So you can follow her there too. I love your IG account because Taylor's not one of these people that just deletes a bunch of pictures. Like you can go all the way to the bottom and it starts in high school. But I actually did this the other day on your account. This
Oh
is like
God, what
I
happened?
stalked it. I went all the way to the bottom and went all the way up. And it's such a beautiful story of how you
Thank
in
you.
pictures of how you've developed to where you are today. And I love that you keep that there because I think it's a good reminder to ourselves too, like how we grow. And you
Mhm.
have just flourished so much. And I love that about you.
Thank you
So
so much.
yes. So thank you for coming on. You mean the world to me. And thank you guys, everyone, guys and girls, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Pitch Live with Amy Summers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a rating or review. Your feedback helps us plan future episodes. And I hope that you are inspired today by Taylor and her pitching strategies and success, and that you will share that with others so that others know how to advocate for themselves and make success happen. As a bonus, join us at emisivox.com where you can get motivated, hone your communication skills, and binge as much mentorship as you want whenever you need it. The link is going to be in the show notes along with all of my social media handles and Taylor's. So let's stay connected and follow each other in success and support each other. And until next time, keep making success happen. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you so much.